Welcome to today's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Marci Slagle, President of Bank Financial Equipment Finance. Marci, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
No, absolutely. So I know it's rare. However, for the people who don't know you, who watch these, if you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself and kind of your career in equipment finance.
Well, I've been in equipment finance, yikes, for over 20 years now. So I'll have to go back to the same joke. I started in leasing when I was 12, obviously. Years back, I started with Memball Capital, which was a great place to be. Worked for him for almost about 10 years, which again, if anybody knows probably about Sudir and winning with leasing, that my early career was really based on education and really learning the industry, which was a great place to be. And from there, I was able to get very involved with the CLFP Foundation, or the CLP Foundation as it was then. So I think that learning and education has always been kind of a backbone to my view of the industry in general. And it's given me a lot of different viewpoints, I think, because working with all the people from all the different kinds of leasing companies and service providers to all the different aspects that are in equipment leasing.
Well, that's good. So let's talk bank financial equipment finance, if you don't mind, because I know traditionally you've been, on the sales side of the
Well,
house.
I've been always on third party, but at when I was at Memball, I actually ran their direct, indirect, and small ticket group. Okay. So it's not really my first rodeo as far as managing a group, but I kind of, when I left there, moved more into just the strictly sales group, and actually started third-party origination groups at both Tetra and at VFI. They're both still pretty going strong. So it's not. Right. I've definitely built up divisions historically, which is kind of one of my go-tos with that. But kind of to step back to Bank Financial, they've been, the bank's been around since 1924. We're now publicly traded. We have 19 brick and mortar locations around the Chicagoland area. We're based in Burr Ridge, Chicago, with 7 satellite offices around the country. Our biggest branch is probably equipment leasing, but we also do multifamily housing, real estate. We've got a paying agency group, so we're pretty diverse. I think when I joined the bank, people that have been in the industry for a long time know of them, but they've had a pretty quiet reputation, a great reputation, but a quiet reputation historically.
Well, I would think it's safe to say that the quietness between bringing yourself on and Stephanie Hall.
Yes,
I would say
Stephanie Hall to run our small ticket group. So
we'll have to look to get her on one of these too. But I would say that
raise the volume, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'd say it's a similar situation to where I kind of ran into at JDR, where it's like, oh yeah, we've known those guys forever, but they're kind of quiet, and it's like, watch out.
Well, and kind of historically, one of the reasons that I was brought, historically, we've been almost exclusively on the equipment finance side, governmental and corporate rated type credits, which we've done very, very well with. And it was a great place to be, going through what we've had to go through in the last year, because our portfolio has maintained very, very well, and it's very strong. But kind of in addition to running these groups, when they brought me on, it was to start a middle market group, still bankable credits, but slightly less than those corporate type groups, as well as start this small ticket group, which we brought in Stephanie Hall, who runs that group out of Philadelphia. And we kind of want to be the one-stop shop for independent lessors.
And that's perfect, especially with what's going on now. Yeah. I mean, it's good to have even more portfolio diversity. So, I understand you guys wanted to kick this off probably last year, and
we did.
Traveling.
Yeah, Stephanie and I both came on right at the beginning of 2020. We had big plans. We had parties planned. We were going to do great things at ELFA and at NEFA. And we went to the One Monitor conference right before the world shut down, and came home and never left again, as far as traveling is concerned. So it did kind of throw a wrench into the works as far as getting things out there. But it also, on the other side of that coin, was, we didn't get into it right before everything went crazy and the wheels fell off. So we didn't have a portfolio that we had to clean up immediately, and we were able to kind of step back and make more decisions about how we wanted to step into it slowly. I will say that we have a ton of support from the bank. Obviously, we're in huge growth mode. We're trying to hire the best people that are out there and have the best departments so we can get this all running really smoothly.
No, and just my time over the last couple months and dealing with, obviously, I've known you and Steph for almost since I've been in equipment leasing.
Yeah, I think since
But
the first day. You were
yeah,
still
since
baby in those days.
that's 23, and I'm like, I need help, and you know, but even the other people on your team that I've had the pleasure to meet over the last couple months,
Yeah.
definitely building a good team there for sure.
Yeah,
And
we have a great group, and we're trying to grow. We don't want to grow too fast. We're trying to grow in the right way. But, again, we're a bank. We've got a lot of money that we want to get out there and get it used.
Well, and I think that would be one of the advantages of not having to jump on a plane all the time is it allows organizations who are starting up like you to have that Philadelphia, Chicago, basically everywhere.
I would just,
And you
and
don't,
again, I just from a management standpoint, it's been a struggle. I would like to be in Chicago a lot more than I am. But we have, we've got our division here. We've got a credit group here. We've got some salespeople here. We're in the process of hiring a leader for our middle market group. We have Robert Grabner that runs our governmental and corporate group that's been with the bank for 20 years and is one of the most in-depth understanding guys I've ever met in the business. He's absolutely fantastic to work with and has pretty much run all aspects of that. So he's been a huge help. We've got Morgan Gazier, that's our CFO, that is, really behind this. And his goal is to really grow this department. And he's, not afraid to find the right people and make the hard decisions or the easy decisions to make sure that's happening.
No, and that's good, because that's what you want, especially at the end of the day when you're looking to grow something, especially from scratch. You need to have that support unit behind you. And
again, that's like kind of the one misnomer that might be there is that because of the group that Robert has run and my predecessor ran with the corporate and governmental, we really aren't starting from scratch. With the exception,
right.
Small ticket's a whole different animal. I would say that thanks for Stephanie being out there, because that's a different thing. But middle market was an easy, just a little bit of a move to kind of go downstream just a little bit, because we're not going terribly downstream. So it was nice to have a really solid base to build from, because we're just going to get better from here.
Well, and speaking of small ticket, especially what's been going on with some of those traditional small ticket lessors in the last, 9 to 12 months, I could see where it's like, oh boy, okay, what are we exactly?
As you know, there was a couple right when this all started. There was a couple of small ticket players that just immediately said, "We're done. We're not going to do anything until we figure out what else is going on," which at the time was alternately very frightening and also kind of a big opportunity.
Oh, right. Well, especially the way you guys are doing it in the credit box you're going after. That makes sense.
And again, this is my first foray into a bank. I've been doing this for over 20 years, but I've historically worked exclusively for, independent equipment lessors that, we've had equity partners and other funding partners, but this is the first time that all the money is mine.
Well, so now you get
financials, as they like to say.
So now it's even better, because some of those people that have been in your situation, you're always struggling with, obviously people know you and it's relationship driven, but now if you can have the relationships and the lower rates,
it's been wonderful. It's fun.
Watch out.
It's been really fun. it's a challenge, and it's a little bit, it's different than what I've done historically, and banks tend to are not quite by the seat of their pants. There's a lot more rules and regulations than I've had to deal with historically, but it's been really fun.
That's what I was wondering, like from a red tape perspective, I understand that kind of comes with a little bit more oversight there.
And kind of back to your question of difference of what you do from a day-to-day basis, from sales to management. It's really hard for me sometimes not to really immerse myself in individual transactions, which has kind of been what I've done for the last 5 or 6 years, to structure and to step back and say, okay, you do that, and make it work for me, and then we'll get there.
But now you're in a position where you can groom the next Marci up through the ranks and just be the mentor and maybe help people overcome some of the challenges that maybe you faced. Which again, I kind of back to the association, the CLFPs, and that this industry, I know you've touched on this in some of your other fireside chats, is again, just our friendship for that matter, how close my friendships and people I consider almost family members now have all come out of this industry from, every aspect, from service providers to, municipal. I count my best friends and people I consider family are all people that I've met in this industry in the last 20 years. Well, and I think that's why that's why we're here. That's why we enjoy going to those conferences. And what is it? Almost been 11 months now
Gosh, it
since
has been, because I want to say
10.
February was when they had it was the Monitor Disruption Conference is the last
Yeah.
time I've been to a conference.
And this is kind of one of those things where like the need for virtual happy hours. I mean, because much like you, I do all my work, in front of people at conferences, and that's where it's a little tricky.
Been rough. I have to say, I'm not a fan of Zoom or the camera. I'm getting better at it, but man.
But not only that, though, it's like not being able
20 years ago.
But not being able to jump on a plane and just kind of escape the day-to-day stuff, and being able to go and be with your friends and do all that stuff.
I know, not even from a work and from a personal standpoint, it's rough to just be trapped in our little hubs.
I'm not sure what Doug feels, but I don't know how Doug is, but Brooke is like, okay, when are you going to start traveling again? And I'm like, eventually.
I'm sure that my family's probably thinking that too. They haven't actually said that out loud to me yet, but I do spend a lot more time in the office, I think, than I used to.
Yeah, gotcha. So speaking of families, so Brooke, we had Rory when she was 39. Obviously Jeremy turns 12 next week. So
I can't believe that old.
I was in it for a little bit longer no matter what. But then she has Rory at 39. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, here's 18 years more to go. So you had a similar experience where you had a child?
I have 4 daughters. And so my oldest is 28 and my baby is now 11. And I will tell you, that's not how I planned on spending my 40th birthday. But we're glad to have her. My husband and I actually talk about it now. We're thinking, well, it's a good thing we have Grace, because we're 2 leasing people. He's in leasing too. If we were just rumbling around in our house together with only our leasing and not have Grace there for a little comic relief, we'd probably be in big trouble. Especially
in these times.
That's what I mean. With her home alone, just with her, at least she offsets that a little. It's not the 2 of us bumping into each other. But I will laugh at that. Baby at 40, it's the grandkid that got me. So I have a grandson now that's already a year and a half.
Awesome.
That's awesome. At that point, my oldest daughter said, "No more babies, Mom. Move on."
No, and then now it's fun because you can play with them and get them all wound up, and then just kind of leave them and go home. So
it is. We don't get to spend as much time as we would like together, but he's a challenge. He's so busy. It's made me realize I probably wasn't up to another one either. They don't quit moving at that age ever.
Nope. I think Rory is she's a little ball of fire. I mean, you can imagine my personality. She just turned 3, but you can imagine my personality, and I think you've got a little glimpse of Brooke. And it's
her smile is something else. I know every time I see a picture of her smile makes me smile.
That's not from me. That's from her mom. But she definitely keeps us on her toes, which is fun.
Yeah, it is. I no regrets, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time today to sit down with me. So I guess just one kind of final sales pitch for bank, financial equipment finance. Of all the banks out there, why come to you and Stephanie?
I would say Bank Financial has been a great bank, and I can't. There's a lot of great banks out there, so I can't speak to them, but I can say that we are, especially since I've joined, and I'm speaking for myself, of being there for a year, really focused on making ourselves independent lessor friendly. We don't do any direct. Our entire model is built around partnerships and independent lessors. We offer lines of credit, warehouse lines, equity lines, operating capital lines, even for startups. Just last week, I sent out over $12 million in warehouse line proposals for basically startup independent lessors. So we really want to be there for the bigger lessors at that point, and for the smaller lessors to help them grow into being the bigger lessors, which for me is an exciting place to be because I haven't had that opportunity, in my very long tenured career.
No, I could definitely see where they're, especially now more than ever, with some of these like independents that are coming up that just need those lines to be more competitive, or love it. And again, honestly keep the lights on.
Yeah,
So
and the nice thing for us is that, and hopefully for our partners, is, the more products, if they're using our lines, we can we can get better discounts or do better on some transactions when they
right.
lower pricing. Or we now have a paying agency group that's coming in. If they're using our paying agency, we can offset some of the fees in their lines. So we've got a lot of things that can work together, and the bigger the relationship, the better we can be.
Absolutely. Okay.
So,
Well, thank you very much, Marci. I really appreciate your time today.
I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get to see each other in person in the near future.
Yes.
And maybe heading out there again for a soccer tournament. That's the only place I've traveled other than Chicago.
Just let me know. I mean,
I know that we came out the last time, but it was kind of a hit and a miss, and I was afraid to see anyone. We stayed in our little hotel.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. We had Laverne out here last week, and
I saw that. That was,
and it's fun. You pick her up from the airport, and she's like wrapped up in all like N95 mask and everything, and I don't blame her. I mean, it's scary.
Definitely ready for this to be over. My oldest, I think you mentioned Brooke got her vaccination. My oldest just had her second vaccination last week. So hopefully in another month or two, we'll all be there.
Yeah, she just, what was it, 14 days today? So I think she gets that
Second
antibodies test. No, she already got both of them. So her second one was 2 weeks ago today. So I think she goes for whatever, checkup to make sure that,
I haven't even heard of that much further, but I'm sure McKenna knows. I don't. But I'm ready for this to be over.
No, likewise. Well, thanks again, Marci. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jess.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care. All right, bye.